Happy October the 13th, Parish Orphans and Retrogrades. Today we're doing a show that will probably interest a lot of you. A lot of you, on the other hand, might not have followed the Gabby Petito case so much. October the 13th is a strange day, the miracle of the sun. And by my count, we are now at the 104th anniversary of the miracle of the sun. I'll be appearing later tonight on Quite Frankly to talk about some Catholic things appropriately on the day. The Gabby Petito case is not a Catholic thing. It's a cultural phenomenon in addition to a murder case. And today I have the perfect person here to talk with me about both it from an evidentiary point of view and from a personality typing point of view from the Catholic perspective or the Thomistic perspective. Brennan Nakane of NCAPS. How are you doing, Brennan?
Great, thanks. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on. I've introduced your system, personality typing system, and a kind of Aristotomist approach to personality, which includes body and soul. Earlier, last year, I guess, in the middle of the year on Rules for Retrogrades here, and people were really interested in how it can be applied to current events. The Gabby Petito case, which I don't know much about, full disclosure,
Sure.
is a perfect case because it's ongoing. There's lots of questions, right. And we can show how NCAPS can lessen the questions, right?
Right, absolutely. And one thing that makes this case unique, and I know there's a lot of controversy as far as for how much coverage it did or didn't receive, but the one thing that makes it unique is there's a lot of pictures and video with this, both because Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie had multiple social media pages, which included a YouTube channel, Instagram, etc. And also because there's over an hour worth of body cam footage of just prior to the unfortunate event of Gabby's passing. So this is something that really sets it apart from many of the other unfortunate cases that are out there right now because of that ability. And then also there was a long period between Gabby being missing to then being reported to being missing to then being found. So that allowed for a lot of internet sleuths, they call them, to help to actually help with the case. And in fact, they did help with the case. There are many people that were going through that area that just so happened to pick up her van or pick up another, Brian walking, almost looked like Bigfoot in the background. You literally see a small picture of Brian, but all these things helped to place Brian and Gabby at certain places.
Yeah.
And so therefore, there was a crowdsourcing.
The reason that this is so important, the excess of video, Parish Orphans and Retrogrades, for the relevance of Brennan's system here, the Thomistic, Aristotomistic system, NCAPS of personality typing, unlike the four temperaments, unlike Myers-Briggs, is because video provides images, moving images of particularly the face and the body, which can be used under the proper view of the world and of the human being to show what Aristotle calls a hylomorphic picture, exactly. A view of form and matter together. In the case of human beings, that's body and soul together, where particularly the movements, the twitches, whatever, tell you on a systematic scientific basis, a hylomorphic basis, what's going on. Real quick, before we get into some of the video and these 5 clues that Brennan here has marshaled, I'd like to remind you to please click like, subscribe, get notified, leave a comment. I like cookies, even though it's a solemn day. This is what we need for the channel to grow. The channel is growing. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you watching the broad range of Thomistic Catholic content here on Rules for Retrogrades. Secondly, if you want to support the show, Timothy J. Gordon at Patreon. I also urge you to get out of your blue state, get to a red state, go to realestateforlife.org. Do what I did. You got to get out now when there's breathing room to get out of a blue state get to a red state, the plan, according to Biden and the state governors, might be even eventually to shut down state borders. So get someplace good first. Go to realestateforlife.org. They'll help you to do that. Okay, so Gabby Petito, you want to give us a 30-second shot as to what's going on in the case? Because a lot of people out there might not be following it. They might just see it on Yahoo News. What's going on today? And then we'll get into how you can offer unique insight with NCAPS, Brennan.
Sure. So maybe working backwards first, the autopsy results were just released yesterday. So that's the most telling bit of information. But it appears that a couple that was making a cross-country excursion to various different national parks, and they were documented. They had a social media presence. It appears that the boyfriend, who was the fiance, went back home without his fiance for a couple weeks. Eventually, her parents realized this and contacted the authorities. And unfortunately, on September 19th, her body was found. And just yesterday, October 12th, the autopsy revealed that she was strangled. Most notably in this case, on August 12th, a 911 caller called to say there was a disturbance between a man and a woman, and that the man was slapping the woman. And eventually cops pulled over Gabby and Brian, interviewed them, and essentially ruled that it was in a reverse, that she was guilty of domestic violence against him. They separated the two, and they just said, well, she's no threat, so we'll just let them go. 2 weeks later, most likely, is right around the time period that experts guess that she probably was murdered. And that is the ruling. Not only, obviously strangled, I guess, implies a homicide, but yeah, it was ruled a homicide.
As homicide as it gets. I remember. Yeah. And I mean, this is a serious thing, but it is, as a simple matter of fact, an opportunity to show what a lot of people remember of NCAPS was you and Audra, the co-developer, your wife of the system, coming on and showing us, me and the parish orphans and retrogrades out there, using like Ocean's 11 characters. Like, look, when this character wants to portray such and thus anger, he's going to go into a certain hylomorphic body mode. And when a character is attempting to conceal, he's going to go into this mode. Obviously, using current events, particularly criminology, is like probably the most ready-made instance where you can show off the wares, end caps. That's why we're doing this today. So you're saying 5 clues that you can get from video that other people can't are furnished by end caps.
Right. Absolutely. And I think one of the important things to see is if people think conventional personality typing or body language, and there's a lot of experts that have certain degrees of distinctions, but this is going to be far superior to that. But even if it wasn't, it also goes to a view of the body being body and soul, and a spiritual standpoint or component that other systems really devolve to a evolutionary psychology view, that everything is for survival or for reproduction, and therefore we should maximize those things. So you can't help but, when you listen to other personality or body language experts, for them to bring up very dubious to outright immoral, grave sin material, because that's baked into their theory. So,
sure. Yeah, modern psychoanalysis is all based on some weird combination of Freud and Jung, and that one or both of those are being popularized by basically any other place you would look that's doing something like what we're doing here. So that's why it's important, because hylomorphism is real. Nature and supernature, nature and grace interact in such a way that the human being tells on himself And that's why we can look at 5 videos. You're going to get into, I guess, video 1 now.
Yeah.
Real clues.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that experts miss, and it's a little bit of a tricky title because the focus of it is what can we do with Nikana caps that no expert can do? And the first thing we can do is we can profile with the classification of the person. So anybody that's familiar with the case knows that there was a initial officer that pulled over Brian and Gabby, and then a backup officer came, but he was more senior in rank, and he helped out with the case. And what he did is he did a very quick read on what was exactly happening. And when he did this read, he helped to subtly, and other times not so subtly, push it to be what would have seemed to be pretty obvious, to have some red flags to say this could be a domestic violence case. I mean, they clearly had a phone call saying as such. And instead, what happened was he read the situation, and he read it in such a way that actually reversed the decision to then say Gabby was the aggressor. So why is this important with the caps? Well, the first thing we realized from his profile is that he has a revolution secondary. And so why this is important, and again, this may seem esoteric to certain people, and that's fine. The key is this is where the rubber meets the road, because if you get this wrong and you have a traffic stop, when you have 1 hour to discern these things, if you don't know Nikana caps, you're not going to be able to make these reads. And when you don't make those reads, unfortunately, people die. So it's a very significant thing to say, take out this lens that we believe God provided to the world, and you're not going to be able to make these reads. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to a few years back prior, when this officer was on a YouTube video, and what he did is he was describing his philosophy. So we just want to go through that a little bit. I might stop it and start it, but in general, we want to see his
NCAPS, the Nikana cap system. Every human being has a primary motivant and a secondary motivant. We won't go through all of them. Maybe we can just say what's relevant for Brian and Gabby. But you said his secondary is revolution. What's his primary? Did you say?
His primary is most likely respect, based off the video that we're seeing. We think that he's respect, and so and that will flavor, but not as much as the revolution secondary. That's the one that we're focusing on, because what revolution does is it focuses on what it thinks is right. It focuses on principles, and when it's a secondary, what it lacks or really struggles with is going to a balance or an opposing view. So like when you write a paper, right, you might write what your premise is, or what your main statement is, your thesis, but then you have to have counters to it to be able to address the same way that Aquinas did in his writings. Well, instead, the challenge with a revolution secondary is they can really struggle with that. So they have, okay, I figured it out, this is what's happened, and they don't double check by playing the other side. This is what this officer did. And if anybody cares to go through over an hour worth of the footage, you're going to see time and time again how he's helping to influence everybody based off of the preconceived notions of what it was like with his ex-wife, or this is what's like because he's opposing the fact that we have these dumb laws in his state, and he goes through over and over again, and then he hears, let's just say, the eyewitness of the 911 call or anything else, and he tells it to other people through his filter. And because we have record of this is pretty phenomenal to be able to see this in real time. That's why it's so significant. But when we went back a few years to see video of him and to hear his same philosophy being said 3 years ago in the abstract, and then to see it applied with this stop, it's quite challenging. And again, we don't hold it against him, because everybody has this challenge when they don't know themselves, which is really the first thing the experts missed, is baselining without an understanding of who this person actually was, what they're actually motivated by.
Yeah, so it suffices to say everybody's got a primary and a secondary in what you call the profile. We're not going to talk about what all of the Nikana caps primaries and secondaries are here, but you can see from the video and you know what to expect. And if the cop knew it,
absolutely,
he would have known what to expect here. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So here is Officer Pratt.
I used to pull people over for no insurance, and I was supposed to impound their vehicle. And if I don't impound their vehicle and I let them drive down the street and they run into you or me, and it's their fault, am I helping the person that got T-boned at the next intersection because I didn't impound a car and now they're injured and the guy didn't have insurance? No, I can't let him go. But if he doesn't have insurance because it's a financial reason, how is a $400 ticket and an impound going to help? So I quite often, I'd find my own loopholes, perfectly legal and I think very just loopholes. I would tell, for example,
that's the first thing, looking for just loopholes. And that was the exact thing that happened in this case. So that would be the first main particular point that the experts missed. Didn't understand that this was actually an MO that goes back years ago. And again, we don't fault him for it because everybody has these biases. If they're not trained in the comic caps, if they're not trained to work past these weaknesses, they're going to continue to fire.
Okay.
Person, hey, this stop's going to take me about 15 to 17 minutes, which is how long, without the impound, just to do a traffic stop. They've decided in federal courts that you have about 15, 17 minutes of regular work if nothing else arises. And so, I got 15, 17 minutes. If you could call an insurance company and get insurance over the phone and use your card and get it right now. Most people can do that for under $100. And if you can show me proof of it and I can confirm it before the stop is over, I won't submit the citation and I won't impound your car and you can drive away. Everything's covered. The guy has insurance. It costs him less than $100. There was no.
So again, think about the error in logic in this place. The idea is he's saying this is a legal loophole, but the whole premise, the whole idea of what the law is supposed to do is to be a deterrent for people not having insurance in the first place, not about being a deterrent for not having insurance when you get pulled over.
Right.
So at this point, basically, the person could sign up, get the insurance, and then a day later, a month later, an hour later, cancel. And that's not going to protect who he's saying could be protected by an uninsured motorist getting into an accident. So the problem is he really hasn't played his balance side of his logic. He thinks this makes complete sense when in fact it's really missing something. Same thing happens in the Gabby and Brian case.
Impound, the state and the city didn't get their money. That's true. But who do I work for? I get paid by the state and the city, but who does the state and the city work for? Us, the people that I pull over, the people whose houses I go to. Whose team am I on? Should there be an us versus them? And so those kinds of questions have started keeping me awake at night.
And again, if Officer Pratt does watch this, it's one of the things that the reason why we want to work with law enforcement is to help in the situation, because we understand you guys are putting your lives on the line. It's a oftentimes thankless job, especially these days. But at the same time, we think that we can help, particularly in dangerous situations like this.
So how so? What would you tell him here, having seen what we've seen? Quick snapshot.
Well, the first thing is, sure, the quick snapshot would be understand your revolution secondary thinks that you have figured things out, right, and you jump very quickly. And right, no matter if you think you're 95% certain, you've got to play that 5%.
Right. Thinking you have things figured out when you don't.
In the Gabby Petito case,
you have thinking that you have things figured out when you don't leaves blind spots. So unless you're 100% certain,
yes,
revolution secondaries even can be clobbered by the blind side.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because instead, if he would have played the opposite side to say, I'm 95% certain that this is what happened, but just in case, Brian, can I hear your story one more time? Hey, Brian, I know you gave me the quick answer, and I know we have this kind of, bro vibe going on here, yeah, but, I need to play Columbo, or I need to play Sherlock Holmes. Right as I'm about to walk out of the door, I ask just one more question. And at that point, we think that it would have, given much more information, and then get to the real truth. Because if you're revolution secondary, you're focused on the truth, you should really want the truth. And instead, what happens is he has a preconceived notion of it.
Cool.
So the second area that we have is understanding others. So in this particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to go through how the read that was made during the stop, how essentially
Gabby and Brian, you mean
right.
the traffic stop of Gabby and Brian, if we fast forward in time now?
Yeah, exactly. Because what's happening in that situation is you have essentially people thinking, well, I see what's happening. It's a hysterical woman. It's a calm guy. And if I add the fact that I think that she's probably off her meds, which is really, even Dr. Drew kind of intimated certain things like that, which again could be true. There's plenty of cases where that could be true. And so what happened is the guys, they vibed off of him, and she's hysterical. I mean, it's hard to relate to anybody that's hysterical, right? So it kind of makes sense. But in the situation, what they're not doing is they're not understanding, wait a second, there's certain people that you may like that can stab you in the back. There's other people that maybe you can't get along very well with, but you could really trust because they're trustworthy people.
Yeah, they're drastically different. They're drastically different types of situations that all fall under one generic heading, right? If I'm an officer of the law and I pull over a couple, I'd kind of paint with a broad brush and say, this is a hysterical woman with a guy that's acting cool as he rolls down the window from the driver's seat.
Right.
But, and we'd say this is kind of a hysterical traffic stop, but any cop ought to be able to tell you, well, but there are clearly situations that favor that the woman's upset, but not truly hysterical. Maybe this would be when she's a reasonable person and a victim. There's another situation where the guy, that they're fighting and the guy's the more reasonable one. There's criminal instances of this.
Right.
There are non-criminal instances. There's one generic term, traffic stop, with a hysterical situation, but a million shades going all the way to criminality. So you're saying that Nikana Caps would allow a cop to pull someone over and say, here's really what's going on. Here's the degree to which this is an exigent situation.
Right. And one of the big tells was the fact that when he was apologizing, he was over apologizing. And as we go through, I have to load up the video. As he was over apologizing for the situation. And what that, I'm sorry. Okay, cool. And it kind of feels like the first or second time, I don't believe you when you keep saying it now, because it feels like you're forcing it, right? And so we think that, for instance, Brian is most likely a victory primary, which is really good at sales, but he's an approval secondary, which will have a lot of emotion, either. So in the case in which they're pulling.
I think you're breaking up a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Brennan, it looks like we're losing the connection there some. So can we run that video? Maybe that'll be a better connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're breaking up a lot.
Yeah. Okay. I apologize. This is
it's victory primary. What's his secondary?
And why that's significant is because victory primaries are very good at selling themselves. So in this situation, he realizes what needs to be sold. And then the second part is, can you see the screen now?
Okay.
You want to place your vehicle in the park and go ahead and turn it off for me?
So here he goes, yeah, sure, right? Everything's okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm good.
No, park. Oh, it isn't park yet.
But then you begin to hear these little things like, oh, it isn't park, right? And he'll continue to do that throughout this video. That if you understood Nakani caps, you'd be able to see, oh, wait a second, he's trying to establish control. His chin is kicking up too much. He's doing too much of these counter reads that aren't fitting, that he's just some docile, harmless individual.
Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me. All right. What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
I'm Brian. Gabby, Brian. Okay.
So the first thing you see is his chin's way up in
the
the air. Okay, right now he's in wealth mode. Wants control. So in the situation, even if somebody's being sweet as a button, their chin's in the air. I'm making the read. They're in wealth. They want control. They're just trying to mask it if they're apologizing or anything else.
I see.
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Personally.
So now she directly answers the question. We're fighting personal issues, right? She's getting to the heart of the matter of what led to that. Now watch his
It was a
answer.
long day. We were camping yesterday and camping stuff, flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
So
I was distracted.
again, what does he do? He half says something, doesn't finish the sentence, and keeps redirecting to other place, to other place, to other place to try to confuse at the same time as he's saying he's sorry. But he's not really respecting him. He's not giving the answer. Chin's up in the air. This would be a very easy read right off the bat. I would have red flags all over the place, and so would any law enforcement with the Connie caps.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
So from her, so like I locked the car and I walked away from her. She's trying to start up regular.
Come on over here. You're not in any trouble right now. So tell me what's going on.
Okay, so look down. He's thinking. Right,
If she just gets worked,
again, not answering the question directly.
this is myself from her, so like I locked the car and I walked away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog.
Trying
And
to start her own little website blog, right? Keeps changing, wavering all over the place, not taking any responsibility.
so I give her time. And we really had a nice morning.
I gave her time, cuts himself off because he knows he's gonna look like a jerk if he continues that.
And if anything, but she just worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go.
So again, the body language experts that talk about stuff like this may talk about his holding his hands, and those are all good reads as far as showing nervousness or whatnot. But what they missed is baselining him as his profile versus baselining him just when he's calm versus when he's animated. Right. That's all they can do. That's what lie detector tests are about. Right.
So why is he mad?
Calm,
Why is he
animated.
upset
Calm, animated.
now?
Why?
Like at this point, what the information tells you what about him? He hasn't killed her at this point.
Well, the first thing is just no. He hasn't killed her, but that's actually it's going to be going to the next part. Actually, we'll begin to show why this could have escalated to begin to end. But obviously, none of us entirely know.
It's all.
But at this point, we do know that he's struck her in the face. We do know at this point he locked her out of the car, threatened to leave her. We do know at this point he then got pulled over, and he allegedly got pulled over.
I'll just say allegedly after everything you said.
For everything. Yes. Well, so from that standpoint, what we allegedly know is the fact that this was a very heated, tense moment.
Gotcha.
And so therefore he's amped up, and on top of it, he's getting pulled over, runs into a curb. But the problem is when an expert defense attorney on Dr. Phil said he would put this video on because he seems smooth, right? He seems friendly, or some terms like that. The problem is, if that defense attorney and the jurists knew Nakani caps, they would think the exact opposite. So the fact that even a top attorney and top body language experts can read this as being docile is a problem, because what they're really doing is they're allowing for very superficial, or doing any of these other things, when in fact this cop does a good job initially reading, and then unfortunately The other cop helps to influence this guy to reverse his read. Because you're going to hear right now.
Like Archie pulled this up every time.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand. That's why I was pushing her away. Because she wanted I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not, go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute. She was getting a little worked up. And then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys from me. So I got away. I was just trying to. I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go. Let's just take a minute, step back, and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand? Oh, you got a mark right here.
Oh, that's from a wire.
That's from a wire?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
So the first one, again, he's continuing not to take any responsibility for things. Now, this officer, I think it's Officer Robbins, good questions, good tone, everything's good so far. And you'll see he's trying to explain hitting the curb, and he blames it on Gabby hitting him or grabbing the wheel. I'm not sure which one is in this one. But then later on, Officer Robbins will say, well, she going fast, right? So he's trying to get him to take responsibility for at least one thing.
It was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
What about the speed? Did she take over the...
No, I'm sorry.
The pedal on you?
If I was going fast, I'm sorry. No, it's like
this is what the officer should have done, which he did and should have continued to do. And because he did not understand his profile, he did not understand Brian's profile, did not understand the influencing officer, Brad's profile, it all basically resolved to a happily ever after story for this.
Just the moment of, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flash.
Yeah. So that's again, and there's more video we're gonna continue to make on our site, really go through this in detail. But this gives a good example of some of the reads. And then you'll see like this one little last one when he's sitting over, and you'll begin to see little reads that Brian's nice front or putting on airs starts unhinging a little bit or getting
I'm sorry about that.
Do me a favor. You want to go ahead and just put it right over here on the curb for me?
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry. I apologize.
You don't have anything in that pocket or anything like that, do you?
Nope.
Just the wallet? All right. And then, do you mind lifting your shirt so I can check the waistband?
I got it.
You hear that? Yep. He's going a little bit too fast now. He's bringing the officer to the punch a little bit. That's when, yeah.
So you said this is what the cop should have been doing. Did you mean directing and pressing more with the questions by this? He should have been doing more
yes. Making him feel more uncomfortable, making him feel like he's not trusted, because he's not at this point. Everybody shouldn't be trusted at this point. Keeping a certain tone with him, because what you begin to see is more acts of aggression and control coming out from Brian. Yep, it's good, right? So he's beginning to show this more, which means eventually if they kept pressing on this, he would have cracked more and they could have gotten more information. But instead, they kept him relatively comfortable because they kept off the gas pedal on this. But you can see right here.
Real quick? Perfect. Nothing. I just want to make sure. That's all, man.
No, I got
Go
you.
ahead.
Right? No, I got you. Like again, you've worked with high schoolers, right?
Yeah.
If you had a high school, oh no, I got you. What would your read be on that? Right? That would not be a good read.
Right. And he's trying to hurry through. He's trying to maintain control. He's trying to steer the orientation of the bark where he wants it to go.
Right. Exactly.
Do me a favor, take a seat. All right.
And you see that little, all right, when you do that, that's one of the big things. If you're reading a victory primary, it's oftentimes when they don't think you're looking, that their face will then go to what they're actually naturally feeling. So that part, as the camera goes away, you can then see his face actually relaxes. Right? It'll happen all the time when someone sells me on something. They go from a friendly face, and as soon as my head turns, I keep watching at the corner of their eye. Their head goes poker face after that.
Interesting.
And so this would again be a technique that law enforcement would be able to read.
Oh, do you have your ID on you?
In the car, if you want to come with me.
No, we'll just do this. Just go ahead and take a seat.
See, do you want to come with me? Right? Keeps trying to steer it. And the last clip from this is he tries to get in the shade.
Come with me, I'll give it to you.
No, you're fine. What's the first name?
Brian.
and then he'll say,
You come with me, I'll give it to you.
UNIAN. First name Brian, layman spellings.
basically what happens is he says, hey, I'll say,
Alrighty, just hang tight for me.
here it is.
DRIE.
DRIE?
Yep.
Laundry? Okay. What's your date of birth, Brian?
So basically what happens here is he says, hey, I'll say crisscross applesauce, but can I go in the shade, right? And you think about somebody, if somebody is compliant with an officer, you're not going to talk like that to them.
Yeah. So are we getting to video 3? Or
Yes, we are. So,
okay.
yeah. So video 3 now ironically, this is what some of the body language experts, again, which I love a lot of their stuff, but this is what they missed. This is the type of stuff that without McConaughey caps, you can't read. The first clip is going to be from the one and only video that Gabby and Brian have on YouTube presently. It's called Van Life. And on this video, what you're going to see is a clip of them basically going through a lot of sped up time lapses. And then they're going to describe, here's how our trip was going.
Right.
And one of the things you're going to see is this is supposed to be them celebrating, meaning this is a good part of their life.
Gotcha.
And so
I love the band.
okay, so you see that minuscule little clip there, right? It's like no biggie, right?
Yeah.
Well, with McConaughey caps, what the experts missed is they actually use this video to say, here's when everything's happy. We're saying with McConaughey caps, we say, no, things are not happy right now. And in fact, this is just 2 weeks prior to the video that we just previously saw. There's a rainstorm that just happened. So I think it was at the very end of July. And we call these, again, poker tells, micro motivants. They're just shifts and slips of behavior that happen on a very minute basis. But once you know it, you can read as clear as day.
Okay.
So the first thing you're going to see is what happens is, okay, he looks over, eyebrows up. And again, it said that when you recognize yourself or other people, you'll do a real quick flash of your eyebrows, seems happy, goes over here, looks over to her, seems happy, right? Connected. And then what does she say? I love the van. Now, the reason why we put this timer here is because it's very important. For the average human response, there's 3 different response times. If somebody is shocked by something visually, it'll be 0.25. If somebody is shocked by something from auditorily, that will be 0.17. And if somebody's shocked by touch, it'll be 0.15. So what we did is, given the fact that she says, I love the van, and then the camera begins to go toward them, we could say, well, maybe he's just scared that the camera's going toward him. But what he's doing is he's giving a micro expression. If anybody's seen the show Lie to Me or study about the work of Dr. Paul Ekman, you can see the eyebrows go up, the jaw starts to drop right here. Okay, it's surprise. And in this case, basically the question is, why is he surprised? Well, we think at that point, he's feeling respect. He's got approval secondary, so he's conflicted respect. He likes the respect. He goes close to her, all those things, and she focuses back on ownership of a van, of a vehicle.
Like jealousy.
And now we're going to have.
What are you saying that brings out?
It's beyond. It's not jealous. It would be more like not being considered.
Gotcha.
Not being like she's using him because she doesn't like to drive long distances, as she said in the inquiry. So he's driving the long distances. He's doing a lot of the legwork here. And this is be a time that she could give him approval and love in compensation for that. And instead she's focusing on it. Now we would say, understanding her profile, like we have a daughter with her profile, and we understand that because that's how she talks. So if Brian would have understood this, he could have actually accepted it more. rather than letting for things like this read of mismatching, of them not understanding themselves and each other, escalating it, and it can escalate to the place of violence, which allegedly possibly happened with in this case.
Right. I see.
I love
So we have right here.
It's
So
good.
he's pausing, very sincere smile.
the band.
Boom. 0.17 at that point, eyebrows are already up, mouth is already up. It would have been too quick for him to be responding to a camera coming at him.
So what would we have expected her to say? Like that would have made him happy? You know, something not about the van, but about how he's doing the driving or something?
I love Brian.
Oh yeah.
I love Brian. Right?
Yeah.
I love Brian.
Yeah.
I love being with this man, right?
I
So
see.
then
I love
we,
the band.
yeah.
Gotcha.
And the problem is it's just a series of little slights that can happen this way. And on top of that, she continues to look at the camera a lot. And again, I have a daughter that would do the same thing. I don't think she's a horrible person for doing it, but I do understand that that is her tendency. And I also understand that that's, what we hope to try to help her develop so she doesn't do it so much and she's considerate of other people. So if she was married to someone like Brian, that she would understand how he might read this. Well, instead they were both clueless of themselves, each other. Yeah, rather than I'm looking at the camera and I care more about the camera than I care about the person I'm driving thousands of miles with that's making all these sacrifices, that's, in this situation. So then what ends up happening is there's the part 2 of this, which is now you see the effects of it, right? So that's a theory. And people could say, okay, I buy the theory or I don't buy the theory. Well, let's watch the following subsequent clips.
Let me ask you something.
Ensues.
Is there a competing, how would NCAPs deal with a competing theory? Like whenever I have people here, I'm trying to think if you've ever been on the show sitting next to me. I'm just so used to being in the room alone that I do it ESPN panel style, where when people are sitting here to my left or to my right, I just keep looking at the camera, right? It could someone, and I'm not usually a devil's advocate guy, but this one.
Sure. Yeah.
Could Gabby have
this
just
is
been?
This is why. Completely. She could have been, and that's the reason why we don't fault her for this.
Right.
And that this is why this is kind of this Shakespearean series of mishaps, right? That only the person that committed the murder has the full responsibility. Everybody else, there's a lot of ignorance, unfortunately, that goes on, which is why we want to change this. But if we go back to that situation that you're saying, we're not saying her looking at the camera was the problem. We're saying that looking at the camera is indicative of her control issues, which comes up in various ways. And Brian complains about it, right? I have dirty feet. I can't help it, right? Where she's a neat neck and so forth. But the problem that we have is the language is what sets off all those looking at the cameras. Like I've tolerate, but I know she loves me. And the chance she has to profess to the camera that she loves me, she says, I love my van. You see? And that's when all the dominoes can begin to fall. And what we're going to see in the next video is we're now going to see him starting to show some of this aggression. Again, like I said, this within 2 weeks. This is probably, very, very end of July, and they were pulled within 2 weeks after this video.
Okay.
So it's going to seem that this is glitchy, but I actually stop it on purpose because I want people to focus on these freeze frames when they're not used to making these type of reads. So first thing, you're going to see how much she looks back at the camera. Okay, everything's so. He looks over to her, she backs away. Okay. I don't know this is the case, but there could be a chance that they had a fight prior to this, or that something happened. Okay.
Right.
Maybe they argued about the very thing that we're talking about, but we don't know. But
it's pretty stark.
Yeah.
That's a lot of distance.
Right.
She's still looking at the camera. Yeah, exactly. Yes. And she's still looking at the camera because she still wants to maintain the relationship with the audience. Right. But not so much with Brian.
Right now in a free dispersed camp spot. And we've been lucky so far.
So he said, we've been lucky so far. She's been planning this trip for the last year and a half. It's her van. She's put her life savings into this trip. And he's saying we've been lucky so far. Okay. So that's a slight.
Far at all the places we've stayed. Far at all the places we've stayed.
Okay. First goes to a rule from a caps read. Then she goes thinking and feeling, which is disapproval. And then she goes over to rule, the opposite place.
Where her eyes are.
Far at all the places we've stayed.
Yes.
But I'd say this is one
So,
of the
so we can tell that after he said, well, we're lucky so far, she puts her, and again,
far at all the places
even if you haven't been trained in
far at all the
caps,
places
you
we've
just know
stayed.
when someone starts making that look with their lower lip starts to kick up.
Far at all the places
Kind of
we've
read
stayed.
okay. And what she does is she goes over here to a rule, she goes to disapproval, and then she goes to another rule the opposite way. So we know she just processed. She's not just shaking her head. She processed what he just said.
Far at all the places we've stayed. Far at all the places we've stayed.
See that hurt lip.
Far at all the places we've stayed. But I'd say this is one of the best so far. Since we left New York.
Oh, now look at her eyes. Way, way more like, dude, what are you doing? Right? Big change from what we saw in the beginning part.
What? Sorry, I just lack the context. Why did that hurt? What he said about being lucky, just like that her planning wasn't good or something.
Because she
like
just
that?
planned it. Well, no. He's saying lucky. She planned it for a year and a half, right? If somebody just built a pyramid over 20 years and said, "Oh, you guys got lucky. Looks nice. Looks. It's not bad." Right? That would be a slight. Rather than being, wow, 20 years, that's amazing. Like the Titanic comes out of Belfast. Wow, that's amazing. Not like, oh, you guys got lucky.
yeah.
So this is she's put everything on this, and he's belittling it the same way he said, oh, she's trying to start this little bluff. Like, no, this has been years in the making. She's put everything on the line, and regardless of whether or not she had a legitimate chance or whether or not she had other challenges, he clearly knows what this represents to her, and in fact, even more so, she just confirmed it by saying, I love the van, right? And he goes, I'm playing second fiddle to her focus to become famous.
Had the plan been for a full year and a half for him to go along, or was he just a last minute addendum to the trip?
Oh no, the plan, it was a year and a half in the making of the planning of it, but it was just a few months here and there as far as the trip. But yeah,
no, but I mean, had they been together for the full year and a half?
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
I yeah, from my understanding, I believe so. Yes, because I think they were going out in high school. So now you have now she's concerned, right? She's like, wait a second. And because she does like control, she's kind of OCD with her control, as she self-admittedly said.
I've only set up my hammock once. I've only set up my hammock once.
Okay. And you can see eyes sweeping across. It's going to a rule at that point. Now she goes back to the camera. She's like, uh-oh, the audience is seeing all of this. You say, that's a nervous smile.
What did he say?
And now we're all the way in Utah, and
I've only been able to set my hammock up once. We've gone all over the place.
Yeah.
Gabby planned this entire thing out, and her planning led to me not using my hammock, which she knows is important to me.
I see.
I've only set up my hammock once. And now we're all the way in Utah, and luckily enough, I was able to set up my hammock in one of these trees.
And we're kind of like in the desert.
Very few trees.
That was a very aggressive moment right there.
Yeah.
What happened is he takes a deep breath after when he says it.
I only set up my hammock
and
once.
Then.
And now we're all the way in Utah, and luckily enough, I was able to set up my hammock in one of these trees.
And we're kind of like in the desert.
Very few trees. Very few trees.
Look at her eyes.
Yeah.
She's now scared, right? She's mad at him, but she's scared.
That's interesting.
So that then shows these little poker tells with Nakami caps, and people will be able to read that they would not refer to that video as a happy baseline the way that the behavioral panel experts did.
Did you say Dr. Phil actually interviewed a defense attorney that said these were happy videos?
He interviewed one person from the behavioral panel, which is they have a massive YouTube channel, and they cover cases like this. So he had one of those 4 experts on there. And then he had a defense attorney, the top defense attorney, and he said, if I was defending Brian, I would play this entire video of the prior one that we watched, the inquiry at Moab, because he comes across so smooth. So, right. I think he said charming, or words to that effect.
Right.
So my point is, it's clearly showing how far people have to go to really understand what's really going on. And when we balloon it up and slow it down and point it out, then people go, wait a second. I mean, it's the same way when I first learned about micro expressions was from the show Lie to Me, that happened just 3 months after we discovered the Connick caps. And it was the first time I had ever known that people make these real quick expressions. I'd never seen it before. My entire life, I watched the video. And then from that point on, I realized, oh my gosh, this is true. And then we took our Connick caps equations, we reverse engineered it, and we actually got in contact and exchanged emails with Dr. Ekman. And then he was blown away by what we claimed that we could do. But the point is, I was blind to it for decades. So I don't expect that people aren't going to be blind to this as well. But once they can read it, you're never going to be able to go back.
Yeah, I could say, like, it's pretty impressive stuff. Once you can see it, you can't unsee it. That's even, evident, I think, in the few videos you played. It's genuinely impressive, and it's genuinely a kind of conversion when you start seeing the micro expressions, even little flinches, or the direction, the trajectory of the eyes. It's impressive. I'm speaking on my own behalf here.
Yeah.
Did you have another video?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So the next video we have is of the sister. So Brian's sister. And the part that we would say with that is the ability. Number 4 is the ability to have better video in interviews and interrogations. And so you can see this was one of the top videos that was played on Good Morning America. And even their video was not up to snuff, right? You're talking about something that's gained a lot of focus, and yet their video was not up to snuff, was not able to read a lot of the
obvious
possible things that could have. And then when you go into interrogation rooms of having CCTV video, it's even worse, right? It looks like grainy 1980s footage. What you're missing out are on all the different reads that the CAPS lens can give.
Me and my family want Gabby to be found safe.
Okay, so right there, we can see the eyebrows right in that middle part, but you can barely see it because it's grainy.
It's like a sister and my children.
Obviously, she did it again.
Me and my family want Gabby to be found safe. She's like a sister, and my children love
my children
her.
love her, but again, the problem is we know there's tension there because things aren't lining up. She's not saying it on pace.
And
a lot of
all I wanted
reads
for her to come home safe and sound, and this to be just a big misunderstanding.
And how close have you guys all been over the years?
For the last 2 years, Gabby's been in our life.
For the last 2 years, Gabby's been in our life, right? How close are you and your friend? Oh, for the last 2 years, I've seen that person, right? It's like the minimal threshold of what you would then say, right?
She's been nice and fun, and we've had a great time. My kids absolutely
nice and fun, and you can see with the caps, we're reading everything. We're reading the words, the tone, the eyes just made a motivant there. So it's really fascinating to be able to share, because it's like a sport. You're getting so much information at the time. Can you keep up with it? So it's
you're
like
trying to sync all.
Stacking.
You're syncing up all the visual and the auditory information you get with caps.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely adore her.
So again, she goes back to her kids. Say, my kids adore her.
Absolutely adore her. Absolutely adore her.
But do you hear how she has no energy on that?
Yeah.
Fear there, bunch of reads, biting the side of her lip, right there.
Wait, is this after she'd been missing?
Don't understand.
Yes. And this is right before she was discovered. This interview, I think, came out on the 17th of July, and she was discovered the 19th.
Gotcha.
as much as everybody else. I'm learning everything from the news too. Yes, it's at Disney. I hope she's safe and good, and just I vacation with my kids at Disney, and we came back to this.
Okay. He keeps doing that with the
I hope
bottom
she's
of her.
safe and good, and just out there unaware. Yeah, they were talked about it for hours along the way. They showed them all the sites. I've seen a lot of people saying YouTube videos is it was from their first trip and their like of travel.
To like family regularly on the trip?
Yeah.
So everything.
I wish I could talk to him.
He just doesn't want to say anything.
I know that it's all
No.
that I haven't been able to talk and helped me with the kids because I had pest control coming in. And
Did they talk to like? You can.
I've cooperated every way that I can. I wish I had.
And that's one of the things we ask people to do. Well, she whisks her hands away.
Yeah.
You can.
I've cooperated every.
Okay, so usually at that place, we ask people to actually do what they see another person doing, and how do you feel when you do that, right? It's also an acting exercise. But when you gesture that way, what would be going on in your head to be able to do that, right? And again, there's a problem with what we're seeing of how she should be feeling in the situation and what she's showing.
What does the whisk represent?
And it doesn't mean that. Well, it's like I could kind of like shushing something away, right? Like shoo, like just get away. Like I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like I wash my hands of it, or I want this gone, right?
Right.
But then now this following part, she's going to talk about Brian. Now watch how this changes, and watch how the sincerity is now reflected the way that it should have for the
way that I
parts.
can. I wish I had information, or I would give more. This is all I have is I gave to the police.
Have you talked to Gabby's family?
No one's reached out to me, and I don't know if it's appropriate for me to reach out to them when everything going on.
Again,
what would you say to her family?
Yeah. Did you do your homework? Like, oh no, I don't think it's appropriate because
unless you think there's a murder,
that you're
going to reach out.
Right. Yeah, and then and she was literally living with the family. That's the crazy thing. Yeah. So you would think that from this massive trip, Brian comes back with the van, her van, registered in her name, and no questions. And then again, you see all these gestures, how it feels like it's a beat off. Everything feels like a beat off.
We want her back safe too going on.
What would you say to her family, just so they know that you're...
Right. Left shoulder goes up, hands go there. See how everything just kind of feels a little bit off sync? It's like there's a latency there. What's going on?
Back safe
What is the left shoulder with the hand?
It's obvious.
Nothing super specific. Just she's uncomfortable.
It's just basic. It's that would have been appropriate for the hands to go there if it was timed up well and everything else matched. But when it doesn't, it seems grotesque. It seems like there's something odd about this.
Right.
And then the left shoulder, that's tied to thinking and some type of anxiety toward the thought.
She's great. She's cute. She loves my kids. They get
She's
along.
great. She's cute, right? That's all she can say about her. She loves my kids. Goes back to the kids. It's the one thing she can muster up some
talk about damning with faint praise. That is the best you can come up with in this instance. Is she's great. She's cute.
Right.
Nice to kids.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
And just as a mom yourself, you probably can't even imagine what.
No.
Okay, boom. Just as a mom herself, now we got some sincerity. First major sincerity that came out. Just as a mom herself.
You probably can't even imagine what.
No.
Right. That's a legitimate horror look.
Right.
And just as a mom yourself, you probably can't even imagine what.
No. That's what obviously the big thing is as a parent. You want to protect your kids.
The first thing she says is, as a parent, you want to protect your kids. What are her parents now being accused of?
Right.
Protecting the kids. So she's asking about Gabby, and she's actually accidentally talking as much about her parents as she is about Gabby.
Right.
He always does the right thing, like in the body cam. He cooperates with the police, and he's wonderful uncle. He's always been there when I need him. He's been there every time Gabby's needed.
You see how now the motion seems more genuine? He's talking about Brian,
Right.
her brother.
Him. It looked typical of both of them. Whenever they'd fight, they would take a little break and come back and be fine, because that's what you do in a couple. I mean,
They were in the mountains together.
I don't think so. I just, obviously, we want her back just as bad as everybody else.
Again,
That's inappropriate. You wouldn't want her back as bad as everybody else. You'd want her. I mean, well, we're the public. I don't know her. You should want her back way
more. Right.
Her language is giving her away. Also,
yes. Yeah.
How does she know what they do in a fight? You know, like, but every couple's habits in a fight are pretty distinct. There's some universals that probably everyone does, but that's odd to purport to know that. But really, that gives it away. That gives something away. I'm not saying what. Allegedly, speculatively, it's odd to say that we want her back as much as all you strangers who are watching the news.
Right. Absolutely. And it keeps going back to that minimum bar of effort. So, so that again shows we just were barely able to read some of those micro motivant and micro expressions, but clearer video would have done better. Had it been a CCTV, we would have seen none of that. So that's that fourth area. Is with the need for better video. And then the other mistake that happens, and we understand why, but news organizations will do interviews. And the most important part of the video is to see how the person is responding to the question. And who do they focus on? The person interviewing, right? So at minimum, there should be like a split cam like this, where you're seeing both things happen at the same time. Because without that, they're giving all this leakage of the truth, and instead you're just looking at a reporter asking a question.
At the very least, with criminals, right? I mean, you should have the second cam.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and politicians and whatnot, because we still want to know the truth. We still want to know what's going on, and you're giving them a pass when you're asking the question. They're showing all this information, and then they have to kind of muster up enough confidence or congruity for those 3 seconds, as opposed to 30 seconds prior to it. You could have read,
it's harder to fake
information.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's good, man. I mean, I say they need Nikana caps. You want to tell people where they can find out more about the Nikana cap system. I think it's convincing stuff.
Sure. Absolutely. So we have a website. It's Nikane, Nakane, caps, CAPS.com. And we have a primary YouTube channel, which is called Nikana Caps as well. And we'll have links to all our information. We're going to put out a free ebook coming up soon. And just trying to help the general public and professionals to start applying this for their lives to be healthier, happier, and most importantly, happier people.
Yeah, criminologists, courtroom attorneys. I think physicians, particularly doing like the rehab work. What if a patient can't talk? My mom's a speech pathologist. Sometimes post-injury, you can't talk. People in their private lives, patching up their relationships. The need for Nikana caps, real scientific applied hylomorphism, is as pressing as it's ever been, human to human. This is an incredibly useful system that has only ever impressed me, and that's why when current events break, particularly current events with major lacunae, gaps in the explanation, what we philosophers call the explanatory gap, man, you guys are there. Thank
you.
Yeah, you guys are really all over it, and this is stuff that I think people really need to look into. So the website one more time is what, Brennan?
Is Nikane, Nakane, like McCain, but Nikane caps, CAPS.com. And I'll say one thing as far as the fifth, because we didn't get to it, but just to intimate to it, is interplaying all these. So if Brian is caught, that law enforcement can use this information, because the best reads will happen moment to moment rather than after the fact. I'm only getting this footage after the fact. If I was able to interview any of the people that it showed, it could have been a chess game to get way more information than even what we're able to reveal right now.
Right. Like not on screen, like if you could be there or something like that.
Right. Or train somebody, because what
Train.
happens is when you notice this one little thing that just happened with Brian in inquiry, I could do all the analysis I want of the video, but it's set in time. And so for the fifth point that we had is really a future point that hopefully Brian is found and interrogated. And at that point, that's when you need to take the first four things that we mentioned and put it all together for the fifth one, which is the interplay. Know yourself, know his profile, be able to read these little slips, make sure you have good video, because even if you're looking down at your notes, you want to see what is he doing at that point, or if you're going out to get a drink of water, what is he doing at that point, to be able to get to really what the truth is, one way or the other.
Oh, I thought that was the fifth. Okay, so
that would be the fifth. Is kind of wrapping it all together, real time. And we use this again. You don't have to be law enforcement to do it, like you said. We use this all day long in order to be a better husband, to be a better father, to be a better coworker. We think it applies everywhere, and it's just as important to be just as good as law enforcement in your everyday life, because your life depends on it.
Cool. That's good stuff. So people check out Nakane Caps. He is Brennan Nakane, named after founder, discoverer, and it's genuinely good stuff. You'll probably see Brennan back on Rules for Retrogrades sometime in the near future. So I thank you for your time here, Brennan, today. I learned a lot about the baseline Petito case, and then lots of subtle stuff that Nakane Caps can yield besides. So thanks for being with me. Everyone out there, thanks for watching. People, remember, like, subscribe, click the bell, leave a comment. Let us know what you think about Nakane Caps. And we'll be back, God willing, Deus Volt, with you, Parish Orphans and Retrogrades, on Friday. Peace.